institution like this, what is really important is to give back to society. And you are fortunate, you are privileged, you come from an institution that has given you an enormous amount. And I think at some stage in life, one has to change one's priorities. You try to do things for yourself, you try to do things for the organizations that you're responsible for. But at some stage, I think there has to be a transformation whereby you also start giving something back to society. Now, for 5 years till June of this year, I was on the faculty of Yale, and I've taught there earlier also in the year 2000. And what I find really impressive about Yale University, which, if I may share with you, has an Indian connection, but I'll come to that a little later. It has today an endowment of about $22 billion. Where has most of it come from? From the alumni. And Mishra Saab, you must thank me for what I'm saying. This is where I think the alumni of this institution should try to give back to the bit in Ranchi, because it really makes an enormous difference. And I've seen how Yale has been able to thrive on account of the support of its alumni. It makes such an enormous difference to the stability, the security, and the ability of the institution to do things that are really beyond what the market might bear, what governments might want, and what conventional knowledge systems normally consist of. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is giving back to society in terms of dealing with problems that are going to become chronic, that are going to be the defining challenges of the age that we are living in. And here may I submit that we are going to be confronted with climate change that's going to have such a profound impact on everything on this planet that if we don't wake up, then we are in trouble. Now, on Monday, I was in Lima, Peru, where the Conference of the Parties is taking place, the 20th Conference of the Parties, at the end of which it's hoped that we'll have at least the draft of an agreement that the global community will agree to. And I had the privilege of addressing that gathering of thousands of people in the opening session. I came back just a day after having been there, and I'm going tomorrow again back to Lima, because for the second segment, which is really the high-level ministerial segment, it's very important to sensitize politicians on what is happening. I'll just say three quick things. Firstly, the impacts of climate change are not something in the future, they're taking place today. We now in the IPCC have come up using the talent and time of thousands of scientists from all over the world, a very clear assessment of what we are doing to the climate of this planet. Temperature increase since the beginning of the last century to 2010 has been on an average 0.85 degrees Celsius. And that's a lot, because the difference between the glacial periods and the interglacial periods historically and over geological time spans has been just about 4 degrees Celsius. What's also important is that sea level rise in this period, the year 1900 to 2010, has been an average of 19 centimeters. So that's almost a foot. And if you're living in Bangladesh, if you're living in the Maldives Islands, then that's a serious problem. And if you look at projections for the future, sea level rise, if we don't do anything about mitigating emissions of greenhouse gases, will go to about 98 centimeters by the end of this century. And temperature increase can go up to 4.8 degrees Celsius, as high as that. So that clearly means that every living species on this planet will be seriously affected. The important thing is that we have the means by which we can deal with this problem. Of course, we'll have to adapt to the impacts of climate change, but we have the means by which we can cut down on the emissions of greenhouse gases. More efficient use of energy, moving towards low carbon sources of energy, reducing and eliminating deforestation, expanding forest area, and possibly over time carbon capture and storage, and that's something which I hope NTPC will get into, because one area which uses coal extensively, and that clearly is the most carbon intensive fuel that you can use, is power generation. So what I would submit is that, ladies and gentlemen, the positions that you're in, you can make a difference. And you can make a difference not only for the benefit of coming generations, but also this generation. Because the worst sufferers from the impacts of climate change will be the poorest of the poor. Not just in the poor countries, but also in the developed world. You take the example of Hurricane Katrina. Who were the worst affected? The poorest dwellers of the city of New Orleans. And I want to end by saying that one of the things that we need to be concerned about, where now there's enough evidence to show that climate change is accompanied by extreme events such as heat waves as well as extreme precipitation events. I don't want to suggest that what happened in Kashmir or what happened in Uttarakhand last year was the result of climate change, but I will say categorically that events of this nature will increase in frequency and intensity. And that not only poses risks to life and property, it also has major economic implications. So if we're serious about dealing with this challenge, then I think in our own lives, we can make an enormous difference. And certainly in the organizations that we are responsible for, we can start moving in a direction that clearly has to move away from business as usual. And this can be done, and I can tell you that we can do it without any additional cost. As a matter of fact, a lot of the core benefits, let's say from moving to a low carbon pathway of development, include things like energy security, include lower levels of air pollution at the local level, probably higher levels of employment, and so on. So there are win-win opportunities which we can identify and pursue, and collectively we can make a difference. But finally, let me just say that it's very important for each one of us who are in a position of privilege to see that at some stage we start giving something back to society which has made us what we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Pachauri, for sharing your insights with us. And thank you for talking to us about the reality that is today, but also telling us about the future, the solutions that are possible. And as, of course, Dr. Pachauri said, it's time to give back to society, and we can do that collectively. So thank you so much, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to welcome Mr. C.K. Birla to please share his thoughts with us. As we all know, Mr. C.K. Birla is the chairman of the C.K. Birla Group. He is also the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Birla Institute of Technology, MESRA. Welcome, sir. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Dr. Pachauri, Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary, Professor Mishra, distinguished alumni of the BIT MESRA, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be here today at the Bitosa Global Conclave. And this is the inaugural function of the conclave in the Platinum Jubilee year of BIT MESRA, of BIT. So it gives me more pleasure that this is the inaugural function which has taken place in the Platinum year. As you know, next year, BIT will be completing 60 years. And it's a great milestone for the institution. And as you may be knowing, that this was started by my grandfather, Mr. B.M. Birla, in 1955, from a small engineering college, which was affiliated to Bihar University, and then it has become a deemed university now, where it has 7 onshore and 2 offshore centers. And it has covered a long way since it was started by my grandfather. In fact, my grandfather always used to say that engineers are what the country is going to make the country go forward. That was his belief, that after independence, if we have engineers, this country will move forward. So that's why he started this institute, and he started it in Ranchi, and the story was, he said that the weather is very good for Ranchi in eastern India. People who were not well used to go for a treatment to Ranchi or to recover in Ranchi. So he said, what better place to have, this should be the place where an institute should be set up. And that's how he set it up over there in 1955. That's when the first class started. Along the way, it has produced an illustrious set of alumni, and I see a lot of them over here today. And I'm really pleased that a lot of them have achieved and taken very high positions in various countries in India, and you have all collected over here. I'm sure my grandfather and my father, Mr. G.P. Birla, who looked after this institute and who really nurtured it for many years, would be very proud of this event. I would like to congratulate Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary and Bitosa Global for organizing such an important event over here today. I'm very pleased that Bitosa is doing this activity, and what I would like to mention over here is that I would like more involvement with BIT and Bitosa Global, that how can we interact in a much closer way. After all, at the end of the day, the institute is what are the engineers or what sort of students come out of the institute. And there is a lot of change that has happened today in the world. As far as BIT is concerned, I have committed that we'll spend 100 crores in the next 2 years for improving the infrastructure, that's the hardware in the institute. In fact, let me add, I would like to spend more, but the problem that I'm facing over there today is, the challenge is that how to spend it. The speed of spending is not fast enough the way I would like to do it. So that's something which we are tackling. But that's the hardware that we are tackling over there, that the infrastructure, the facilities, the classrooms, the laboratories, that is what we want to upgrade. But the biggest challenge is the software, that is the teaching methods, that is how do we teach, a modern way of teaching. The teaching has changed internationally today. We are a premier institute in India. We want to be a global institute. To become a global institute, a lot of change has to take place. And that is where the biggest challenge is in the institute today. Because how do we do that? What are the things required? What are the faculties that is required? What we are evaluating the courses that we teach over here today. We are trying to add some courses, eliminate courses. And I think that is what we need, a lot more interaction with Bitosa Global on this, and to come and give us ideas of what can be done. In fact, one of the first things that I did in this year is, we have taken, and very kindly, 2 of the Bitosa Global trustees have agreed to come onto the board, and I'm very happy that Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary and Mr. S.N. Agarwal have both joined the board of BIT MES. And I'm extremely happy to tell you that I've already seen Mr. Agarwal giving very valuable suggestions. We want to make this interactive. What I would like is a lot more interaction between Bitosa Global and with BIT, with the Board of Governors. And I think I would request and urge all of you that whatever suggestions you have of how to improve the institute, you can give it to us. Professor Mishra is there. You can give it now that you have 2 people, Dr. Roy Chaudhary and Mr. Agarwal on the board, through them, and then we will try and see what better we can do for the institute. Because at the end of the day, the institute ranking is important, but also that the alumni interaction should be much more. I see my daughters have studied outside in the institutes, in universities, and there is so much of interaction between the alumni and the institute, and that has not happened at BIT, and I would like that happens much more. And I think one of the best platforms for that to happen is Bitosa Global with the institute. So I would like you to, I'll encourage all of you that in whatever way you can work with us to improve the institute, we are open, we will welcome any suggestion. And I wish this conclave a great success in the next 2 days that you're going to have in various sessions. And I'm quite sure that at the end of it, Professor Mishra will be able to take back home a lot of suggestions that he will be able to gather over here. And thank you once again for inviting me to this conclave.
Thank you so much, Mr. Birla, for those very warm words. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the concluding remarks, I'd like to invite Dr. M.K. Mishra, who is Vice Chancellor of the Birla Institute of Technology, Mesra. Allow me to tell you a little about him. He is an All India Merit Scholar at the Modern School, Delhi. He was also a National Merit Scholar from IIT Delhi. He did his PhD from the University of Florida from Gainesville and his postdoctorate at the UCLA and Princeton universities. He has been a professor at IIT Mumbai for 27 years. Before his current assignment, he was the Vice Chancellor for the Lucknow University from the years 2009 to 2012. And he has been with us at, of course, the Birla Institute of Technology, Mesra, in the capacity of Vice Chancellor since November of 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. M.K. Mishra. Welcome, sir.
Respected Chairman, Dr. Pachauri, Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary. I know that Dr. Pachauri has to leave. He has a flight to catch which departs at 12:20, and he should be leaving in a few minutes, so I will keep myself short. I will just like to mention what one of our great prime ministers, who was responsible for the transformation of this country, P.V. Narasimha Rao, said once. He said that when I look at myself, I see myself as a 5 feet 3 inch puny individual, but when I see myself as the Prime Minister of this country and President of Congress Party, I feel like a colossus. So gentlemen, this is how I feel. When I see myself as Vice Chancellor of an institution which is tucked in a remote corner of our country, I do feel, weak at times in meeting the challenges, but when I see myself as part of this global Bitosa family, I do feel like a colossus. Dr. Arup Roy Chaudhary has mentioned that BIT has had a modest profile. I think this modest profile is rooted in the modesty of the philanthropic family which founded it. I don't know if you know this, that the best Birla Mandirs in this country are those built by our founder's family. And one of the most coveted science awards, the B.M. Birla Science Award, is named after our founder. And I am going to make a presentation tomorrow, and there were some immodest things in that presentation which were deleted by our chairman when he looked at it. So modesty is going to be a part of the BIT because this is how that family is. But modesty need not come in the way of sterling achievements. We already have come a long distance. On the way, we have accretions that we need to take a look at, and we need to refocus, recalibrate, and unclutter our path to further progress. And this is where I think the deliberations of Bitosa Global Conclave are going to be very helpful. All of you are very warmly invited to BIT Mess